The 2019 NHL Draft is officially in the books. I'm Katie Gaus, host of USHLTV, along with Ben Gislason and Jack Milewski. Now, we had 55 former and current players selected through 7 rounds, and the USHL kicked things off again on day 2, with Tri-City Storm forward Shane Pinto being selected in that first spot by the Ottawa Senators. Now, a great pickup for Ottawa. Shane Pinto, a great player on and off the ice.
Yeah, and so much fun to be around. He's one of those twinkle-in-the-eye type kids. You and I got to interact with him quite a bit at the Top Prospects game where he lit it up and had a great showing there. But we talked about him last night. He's got the size, he's got the skill. Clearly Ottawa sees that as well.
The second round was a whirlwind as we had 8 players selected then. Who stood out to you from that round?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 players and 2 that were picked fairly close to each other. The first one being Bobby Brink to the Philadelphia Flyers. I think the Flyers got a great selection, a player that was talked about being possibly a first-round pick. But before this year started, he was being talked about in the 6th or 7th round. So it's pretty incredible what Brink was able to do, really building his stock with Sioux City and even getting some World Championship experience with the United States developmental team as well. And then another player that played all year with the NTDP is Alex Vlasic, and I think Vlasic, cousins with Mark-Edward Vlasic of the San Jose Sharks, is a great role model there, but he'll also provide really sturdy, dependable defense on the back end for the Chicago Blackhawks, and he's got 2 great mentors there as well, Brent Seabrook and Duncan Keith.
For me, again, 2 guys that, just like Jack was talking about, went close to each other in the second round. 42nd overall to Minnesota, my hometown team, the Minnesota Wild. Vladislav Firstov from the Waterloo Blackhawks. Really elite skill, really elite speed. Saw him a lot when the Bucks would play the Waterloo Blackhawks this year, and he was the guy that made PK O'Hanley awful happy on a lot of nights and had a big rookie year in the USHL. So I think he'll be a great asset to Minnesota. And then another Russian-born player, Igor Afanasyev out of Muskegon. He went 45th overall to the Nashville Predators. I think I made the comparison to like the old pole hockey game where he is on the wing and he goes north and south in a hurry. Big body, 6'3", a definitive power forward by trade. He's a guy that's going to be a big-time addition down the road here, I think, for the Nashville Predators.
And the third round saw 6 USHL picks, including Tri-City Storm D partners Zach Jones and Ronnie Attard, selected just 4 picks apart.
I like to call him fire and ice during the regular season when we see the Tri-City Storm. Ronnie Attard, again, a lot of North and South hockey, had such a tremendous year with, of course, setting the Tier 1 era USHL record in goals by defensemen in the USHL. And then Zach Jones, he was more of the icy, smooth, suave, thinks the game extremely well, and they both share a very special kinship off the ice as well. We saw them interacting a little bit during, I believe it was Attard's scrum, Attard going to the Philadelphia Flyers, Zach Jones going to the New York Rangers, just 4 picks apart. So likely those 2 going to be friends for life.
The fourth round was our busiest of the weekend as we had 12 players selected then, including Ethan Phillips, a Clark Cup champion and now a member of the Detroit Red Wings.
Detroit Red Wings got the 2 top prospect game MVPs, of course, Robert Mastrosimone from Chicago earlier in the draft, and then Ethan Phillips, who packs a punch for his size. Undersized, yes. Overskilled, though, I would say. Really high-end talent, really high-end thinker of the game, and a lot of a different player, but someone that I really thought that stood out to me in that 4th round as well was Matej Blumel, who went to the Edmonton Oilers. Really strong kid. Remember seeing him at the Top Prospects game as well. Had his workout stuff on. He was filling out that shirt pretty well, and he plays with that venom as well. I really like the way Matej Blumel plays. Waterloo Blackhawks, they kick out good pros usually out of the hands of PK O'Hanley.
Jack, who did you see in the 4th round that you really liked?
Well, first is a player that I'm very familiar with, and Matias Michelli, 98th overall to the Arizona Coyotes. And what Ben was talking about with Blumel is almost the polar opposite for Michelli, where Blumel pays that physical style. Michelli is very much finesse, but it works for him. 72 points last season in the USHL, tying Eric Howell's single-season record for a Finnish-born player. And Matias Michelli just thinks the game. He's always one step ahead, and that's a way he can compensate for his lack of size and maybe lack of NHL speed. I think that's one thing he has to work on. Another player that I look at is the leading scorer in the regular season in the USHL, Nick Abruzzese, and the Toronto Maple Leafs get him late in the 4th round. I think that's a big pickup if he can develop. Again, another undersized guy, but with a brain, and he's going to Harvard, so we know he has a good brain. With a brain like Abruzzese, he's going to be a good player if he can continue to develop the speed and the skill, and I think that's a fantastic pickup for Toronto late in the 4th.
Well, the fifth round had 8 selections, including USHL Goaltender of the Year Isaiah Seville, going to Vegas, and not a bad spot for a young goalie. Might get to hang out with Marc-Andre Fleury, but certainly a fun team to be a part of now.
A fun team, fun city, great atmosphere, and Isaiah Seville will fit in there well. You mentioned Marc-Andre Fleury. Malcolm Subban's another player on that team that he's going to be able to learn under. Obviously not the experience of Marc-Andre Fleury, but Subban was a rookie much more recently than Fleury was, so I think that's a benefit for Seville, learning from someone who was in this league pretty soon and trying to make a name for himself. And Seville, he made a name for himself in the USHL, and this is someone who, with Vegas, that team seems to be developing young talent at a rapid pace. They're going in the right direction. It's an exciting place to be right now.
For me, arguably the fastest first 3 steps in the USHL. I don't have the stats to prove it, but someone might. Marcus Kelly of the Sioux City Musketeers goes to the Vegas Golden Knights as well. And getting to see him down at the Tyson Event Center and at Buccaneer Arena this year, especially at Buccaneer Arena where the ice is a little bit smaller than most places, did not take him long to get up and down the rink. So I think his speed will adapt very well to whatever level he chooses to move on to before heading to the NHL.
Well, we had 6 in 6 as 6 players heard their name called, including Cedar Rapids defenseman Will Francis.
One of my favorite defensemen in the entire league, and Buccaneers fans might go, well, what are you talking about? Watch this kid play. Will Francis is one of the last of the old school defenders for his age. I was blown away at the width of his shoulders. This is a big human being, but he moves well for his size. And the one thing I always noticed about him, he seals the blue lines better than almost any defenseman I saw in the USHL this year. So Anaheim Ducks will have a blue line sealer coming their way whenever he chooses to move on from UMD.
Jack, what about you?
Well, a player that Will Francis might be pairing up against in a couple of years with Braden Doyle. He went to the LA Kings, pretty close there in proximity with the Anaheim Ducks. But Doyle's a player that USHL fans really didn't see that much this season. But he's a player I think that we'll see a lot next season for the Fighting Saints, and someone who we're going to see at BU in the near future make an immediate impact. He's smooth skating. He's what the defenseman has started to turn into. You talk about the old school, the last of that dying breed. Braden Doyle's one of the new breed for these defensemen. He's smooth skating, a little undersized, but really able to make a good, crisp first pass. That's what's been most impressive watching his development, is that first read is fantastic for Doyle. I'm excited to see what he does in LA.
Well, wrapping up the day was 5 picks in the 7th round, including a player that we didn't see on that NHL Central Scouting final rankings list, and that was Sioux Falls forward Andre Lee.
Well, there's something to be said for intangibles, right? Andre Lee, you didn't see him on the Central Scouting Report. You didn't see him at the top of the charts in the USHL at the regular season, but when it needed to happen, he was able to make it happen, whatever that was. A big hit, a good pass, a big-time goal. We saw him all over the place in the Clark Cup playoffs. I think Andre Lee is a great pick to take here late in the draft, and he goes to the LA Kings just like Doyle did in the last round. So they're getting a couple guys that maybe weren't high on lists, but I think have high upside, and Andre Lee could be a dependable 3rd and 4th liner for a long time in the NHL.
All right, Ben, take us home. Who was your favorite from that 7th round?
Well, 7th round is about value picks, right? This is where you get your value. This is where GMs really earn their money, those shrewd last-minute picks. Bryce Brodzinski is going to bring a lot of value to the Philadelphia Flyers. He reminds me a little bit of another former USHLer, now NHL star, Brock Besser. Knows where to go and knows how to score. This kid was a Mr. Hockey winner in the state of Minnesota, Blaine High School. Played a little bit this year with Omaha. When he was there, he scored. A very, very high-end shooter, has an elite wrist shot and an elite release. Look forward to him with the Lancers next year and beyond.
Well, certainly a lot to look forward to from all the great talent selected here today. A great showing from the USHL all around. That's a wrap for us here from Vancouver. For USHL TV, I'm Katie Gaus with Ben Gislason and Jack Milewski. Enjoy the off-season.